they sent 900 ships to break Earth. Earth ended the war without firing a shot. Before we go offline, subscribe if you believe Earth can't be conquered. Enjoy the story. In the vast expanse of space where ancient civilizations rise and fall like cosmic tides, there exists a truth that echoes through the void. The strongest predator is not always the one with the sharpest claws. Sometimes it's the one that thinks 3 moves ahead while you're still planning your first strike. Commander Nathan Varlin of the Zarthan Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Decimator's Pride, watching 99,900 warships stretch across space like a metallic constellation of death. Behind him, his command staff monitored holographic displays showing the tactical formation, an armada so vast it had taken 6 standard hours to assume attack positions. Another primitive world to add to the Empire's collection. Varlin mused, his reptilian features reflecting distant starlight. Tell me again, Admiral Raxter, why Supreme Command authorized this excessive display of force for a species that hasn't achieved proper interstellar travel. Admiral Kevin Raxter, his scarred carapace bearing the marks of countless victories, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, the predictive algorithms indicated unusual resistance patterns the humans demonstrate concerning adaptation capabilities. Varlin's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. Adaptation? They're barely beyond throwing metal cylinders into orbit and celebrating like they've discovered fire. He gestured at the tactical display showing Earth's primitive satellites. Look at their technology, chemical propulsion, electromagnetic communications, nuclear weapons that would barely dent our armor plating. Yet something gnawed at his consciousness, a whisper of unease that had followed him since receiving this assignment. In 3 centuries of conquest, Varlin had never failed. 97 worlds had fallen before his fleets, but never had Supreme Command deemed it necessary to commit 99,900 ships to a single target. Such overwhelming force was typically reserved for quantum-class civilizations, not for creatures who still used wheels for transportation. Sir, Communications Officer Tazak interrupted. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual electromagnetic patterns from the planet's surface. The humans appear to be repositioning their orbital assets. Varlin's primary eyes narrowed. They've detected us through our cloaking fields. Impossible to confirm, sir, but the movement pattern suggests deliberate coordination rather than routine maintenance. The Zarthan Empire's arrival at Earth's doorstep was supposed to be a footnote in galactic history, a minor operation before real campaigns began. Instead, it would reshape their understanding of power itself. Fleet status report. Varlin commanded, settling into his command throne as the Armada approached Earth's outer boundary. Lieutenant Pak, his strategic advisor, consulted her data screens. All 99,900 vessels report optimal readiness, sir. First through 5th assault waves are primed for atmospheric penetration. Orbital bombardment platforms have achieved firing solutions on major population centers. The force was staggering each ship capable of reducing continents to slag, collectively wielding enough firepower to crack planets. The Empire had learned to overwhelm resistance before it could organize demonstrating crushing superiority until surrender became the only rational choice. And our intelligence assessment, Varlin inquired, though he'd memorized the briefings. Primitive ballistic weapons, early-stage energy projection, chemical explosives. Pak recited. Their most advanced warships mass 1/10,000th of our lightest cruiser. Current human doctrine centers around projectile weapons and unguided ordnance. They lack unified command-coherent defense grid or any technology approaching our baseline capabilities. Varlon nodded, but his attention was drawn to the planet itself. Through enhanced viewing, he could observe human city lights scattered like luminescent fungi across continents. Such a small, unremarkable world to warrant this attention from Supreme Command. Sir, Science Officer Mivar called out, her voice carrying a note of curiosity. I'm detecting some anomalous readings from the planet's electromagnetic field. The humans seem to have modified their power distribution networks. Modified how? Unknown, sir? The configuration doesn't match any tactical database entries for pre-interstellar civilizations. They appear to have synchronized their electrical grids across continental boundaries, an unusual level of coordination for their technological development phase. Varlon's secondary eyes tracked to the tactical display. Are you suggesting they've prepared for our arrival? Difficult to assess, sir. But the power redistribution patterns began approximately 72 hours ago, shortly after our fleet entered this solar system. A chill ran through Varlon's exoskeleton. 72 hours ago, they had been operating under full stealth protocols. Their arrival should have been undetectable to any civilization lacking quantum sensors. Admiral Raxter, Varlon, called to his second-in-command, "Initiate first-wave deployment. I want immediate atmospheric penetration and surface reconnaissance. If these humans have somehow prepared for us, I intend to learn exactly what we're facing." Raxter's scarred features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. "With pleasure, sir. It will be refreshing to face an enemy that at least attempts resistance, however futile." On the main display, 200 sleek attack craft detached from the primary fleet, their hulls gleaming like predatory fish as they accelerated toward Earth's atmosphere. Each vessel carried sufficient firepower to level a city's sufficient armor to shrug off nuclear weapons, sufficient technology to overwhelm any defense the humans might offer. Or so they believed. As the first wave entered Earth's upper atmosphere, Commander Varlon felt a moment of satisfaction. Soon, this would join the ranks of his other victories' swift, decisive total. The humans would surrender within hours, and he could return to the capital in time for the victory celebrations. But General Audrey Jefferson, watching from her command center deep within the North American continent, allowed herself a cold smile as her screens showed the approaching Zarthan vessels. The Aegis net was active, its quantum processors calculating intercept vectors with inhuman precision. 70 years of preparation were about to be tested. "All stations, this is command." Jefferson spoke into her communications array. "Initiate Ghost Protocol. Let's show our visitors that human survival skills aren't as primitive as they believe." In the Zarthan Empire, contempt for lesser species wasn't merely cultural, it was strategic doctrine. For 3 millennia, their military had operated on a simple principle: demonstrate overwhelming superiority, allow brief resistance to illustrate futility, then accept inevitable surrender. It was efficient, psychologically devastating, and had never failed. Sir Lieutenant Drake reported, "First wave approaching target zone. Contact with atmosphere in 14 minutes. Varlon's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The approaching vessels represented the Empire's finest, each piloted by warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, equipped with weapons that could penetrate any known defensive system, protected by energy shields never breached by pre-interstellar technology. Admiral Raxter moved beside the main display, his scarred carapace bearing witness to centuries of victory. "Look at them," he said, gesturing toward Earth. "No orbital platforms, no energy barriers, no defensive fleet positioning. They're not even attempting coherent resistance." "Perhaps they're paralyzed by fear," suggested Officer Pack. Many primitive species freeze when confronted with inevitable conquest. Their neural architecture may not process the scale of the threat. The bridge crew shared what passed for amusement among their species' harsh clicking, resembling breaking stone. The idea that humans might pose meaningful challenge seemed absurd. Their entire military possessed less firepower than a single Zarthan destroyer. Scans indicate they're still maintaining normal civilian activities, Maver reported from her science station. Transportation networks operating communication systems, active energy production at standard levels. No signs of military mobilization or evacuation procedures. Varlan's satisfaction deepened. This was textbook behavior for a species about to be conquered: denial, inability to accept reality, desperate clinging to normalcy even as doom approached. He'd seen it 97 times before. Sir Communications Officer Tazak announced, "We're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet's surface. Various languages, different transmission methods. Should we monitor their content?" "By all means," Varlan replied. "Let's hear their final prayers." The translations flowed across secondary screens, messages of confusion, feared desperate attempts by human governments to understand what was happening. Military communications spoke of inadequate weapons, insufficient time to mount defense requests for evacuation that could never be fulfilled. It was pitifully predictable. But hidden within that chaos in frequencies, the Zarthan monitoring equipment wasn't calibrated to detect different messages were flowing. Quantum encrypted, transmitted through modified power grids carrying coordinates and activation codes that would have been impossible for a pre-interstellar civilization to generate. General Jefferson stood in her command center surrounded by displays showing the approaching enemy. Her staff moved with quiet efficiency, faces calm, despite the magnitude of threat bearing down on their world. "Status of the Aegis Net?" she inquired. "Full synchronization achieved," reported Lieutenant Samuel Drake. "All continental power grids locked into quantum resonance pattern. We're drawing energy from fusion stations, solar collectors, even geothermal taps. The entire planet is now essentially one massive electronic warfare platform." Jefferson nodded. 70 years ago, when first conquered observers made contact, they delivered a warning the Zarthan Empire would eventually turn attention to Earth. Not immediately, their expansion followed predictable patterns, consuming worlds in systematic waves. But eventually, inevitably, Earth's turn would come. The Concord had offered protection, but only if humanity could demonstrate its worthiness through successful self-defense. They would provide information guidance, even advanced theoretical frameworks. But the technology, the implementation, the actual defense that had to come from human ingenuity. Future tech integration confirmed. Drake continued. All systems responding within predicted parameters. The fusion cascade generators are stable, and the quantum entanglement arrays are maintaining coherence across global distances. It had taken decades to understand the principles, years to build the infrastructure, months to test the systems. But now, as 99,900 alien warships approached their world, humanity was ready to demonstrate that survival skills could evolve beyond anything their enemies imagined. "Ghost Protocol is active," Jefferson announced to her staff. "Remember, people, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to educate them. The difference is crucial." Above, Commander Varlan watched his first wave begin atmospheric entry, confident in his superiority, unaware that he was about to receive the most expensive education in military history. The moment of first contact between civilizations is often defined by a single, crystallizing instant, when assumptions shatter, reality shifts, and the universe reveals truths that redefine everything. For the Zarthan Empire, that moment arrived at precisely 1423 Galactic Standard Time, when their first wave entered Earth's atmosphere. "Contact in 30 seconds," reported Tactical Officer Grisnar, his voice carrying centuries of confidence. On the main display, 200 attack craft descended through Earth's upper atmosphere like metallic meteors, heat shields glowing as they pierced the planet's protective barrier. Commander Varlan leaned forward in his command throne, anticipating the familiar sequence. First, overwhelming demonstration of firepower, then terrified human communications begging for mercy. Finally, unconditional surrender within the hour. It was choreography of conquest he'd performed nearly 100 times, but Lieutenant Samuel Drake, monitoring his displays in Earth's Defense Command Center, was watching different readouts entirely. "Targets acquired," he announced to General Jefferson. "All enemy vessels locked into ghost signal parameters. Initiating feedback loop in 3, 2, 1, mark." What happened next defied every principle of warfare the Zarthan Empire had ever learned. As their attack craft descended through Earth's atmosphere expecting primitive radar installations and chemical-based defensive systems, they instead collided with something impossible. Their own signals reflected back through quantum entanglement networks carrying instructions, their onboard computers recognized as legitimate command protocols. Sir Grisnar's voice cracked with disbelief. First wave reporting massive guidance failures. Navigational arrays accepting conflicting commands. The pilots are losing control. On Varlan's screen, the organized descent of 200 attack craft dissolved into chaos. Ships veered wildly off course, targeting systems confused by signals that appeared to originate from their own command structure. Others found weapon systems locked into safe mode by authorization codes they couldn't override. "What is happening to my ships?" Varlan demanded, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "Unknown, sir. The humans appear to be transmitting on frequencies we use for internal ship-to-ship communication. But that's impossible. Those frequencies are quantum encrypted and change every nanosecond. Mavar's scientific training kicked in despite the crisis. Sir, I'm detecting reflected energy signatures. Somehow the humans are using our own signals against us. They're not jamming our communications, they're hijacking them." The tactical display told a story of technological impossibility. 37 attack craft had been forced into emergency landing procedures by their own safety protocols. 18 others were spinning helplessly, their pilots locked out of manual control systems. 4 had collided with each other when their formation-keeping algorithms received contradictory instructions. "This is impossible," Admiral Raxter roared. "No pre-interstellar civilization possesses the technology to penetrate our quantum encryption. But in Earth's command center, the impossible was happening with scientific precision." Lieutenant Drake coordinated a symphony of electronic warfare that would have impressed the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The secret lay not in matching the Zarthan's technology, but in understanding it, something 70 years of preparation had made possible. "Ghost signal effectiveness at 91%, Drake reported. "We're successfully hijacking their command protocols through their own communication arrays. Their ships think they're receiving legitimate orders from their fleet command." Jefferson watched the display with grim satisfaction. Each disabled Zarthan vessel represented hundreds of lives that wouldn't be lost in a traditional space battle. The Ghost Protocol wasn't designed to destroy, it was designed to neutralize through confusion, to win through intelligence rather than firepower. "How many enemy vessels have been rendered combat ineffective?" she asked. 73 and counting. Their remaining ships are attempting manual override, but our future tech integration is adapting faster than they can compensate. Back on the Zarthan flagship, Commander Varlin stared at his tactical display in shock. In less than 90 seconds, his first wave had been reduced from a coordinated attack force to scattered, confused individuals struggling to regain control of their own vessels. Sir, Communications Officer Tazak announced, his voice tight with anxiety. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's addressed to you personally." Varlin's blood ran cold. A personal transmission meant the humans knew not just their language, but their command structure, possibly even his identity. That level of intelligence gathering required resources and capabilities that contradicted everything they'd been told about Earth's development level. "Display it," he commanded. The screen filled with the image of a human female, her dark skin and composed features radiating a confidence that sent chills through Varlin's exoskeleton. She wore a military uniform decorated with symbols that somehow conveyed authority despite their alien origin. Commander Nathan Varlin of the Zarthan Empire. She spoke in perfect Zarthan, her pronunciation flawless. "I am General Audrey Jefferson of Earth's United Defense Force. I trust you're beginning to understand that your intelligence briefings were incomplete." The bridge fell silent. Not only had the humans neutralized their attack force, but they knew his name, his language, and apparently his situation. How was all Varlin could manage. General Jefferson's expression didn't change. "Let's just say we've had some time to prepare. Your empire's expansion patterns are more predictable than you might think. In the calculus of war, there comes a moment when overwhelming force meets immovable intelligence, and the equation defining victory suddenly requires new mathematics." For Commander Varlin, that moment arrived when General Jefferson calmly explained that Earth's defensive capabilities were just beginning to reveal themselves. "Commander," Jefferson continued from the transmission, her voice carrying absolute certainty, "your first wave has been neutralized without casualties. I want to emphasize that point, without casualties. My people have gone to considerable lengths to ensure your soldiers remain alive, despite being combat ineffective." Varlin's mandibles clicked involuntarily. In 3 centuries of conquest, he'd never encountered an enemy that actively worked to preserve invading forces' lives. It suggested either incomprehensible mercy or terrifying confidence. "What do you want?" he demanded. "I want you to reconsider your approach," Jefferson replied. "Earth is not defenseless, Commander. We simply defend ourselves differently than you might expect." Admiral Raxter stepped forward, his scarred carapace reflecting emergency lighting. "You've disabled 73 ships through electronic warfare. Impressive for primitives, but hardly decisive. We have 99,000 more vessels at our disposal." Jefferson's expression remained unchanged. "Admiral, I assume." "Yes, we're aware of your fleet's composition. 99,827 vessels to be precise, now that we've rendered 73 inoperative. Would you like me to continue?" The specific accuracy sent ice through Varlin's circulatory system. Their exact fleet composition was classified at the highest Imperial command levels. Sir Lieutenant Drake's voice came through clearly on the transmission, though he was addressing Jefferson rather than Varlin. "Pulse Cascade is charged and ready for deployment. All Continental fusion stations report optimal output." "Thank you, Lieutenant," Jefferson acknowledged. "Commander Varlin, I'm going to demonstrate something we call the Pulse Cascade. It represents a significant advancement beyond the ghost signal you've already experienced. On the Zarthan tactical display, new energy readings began appearing massive power buildups at hundreds of locations across Earth's surface. The scale was staggering, representing more coordinated energy generation than most starfaring civilizations could achieve. Impossible, Mavar breathed from her science station. They're synchronizing power output across continental distances. The quantum coherence required to maintain such coordination shouldn't be possible with their infrastructure level. But Lieutenant Drake was already initiating the sequence that would redefine the Zarthan's understanding of human survival skills. Pulse cascade in 3, 2, 1, execute. What followed defied every principle of physics the Zarthan Empire understood. Instead of discrete energy beams or explosive projectiles, Earth's defense network generated something far more sophisticated, cascading electromagnetic pulses that resonated across impossible distances, creating interference patterns that targeted specific technologies with surgical precision. The effect on the Zarthan fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Ships throughout their formation found secondary reactor systems overloading as cascading pulses created resonance frequencies that bypassed primary shields entirely. Energy conduits that had operated flawlessly for centuries suddenly couldn't handle harmonic interference generated by Earth's coordinated power grid. Emergency shutdown procedures, Varlin commanded as alarms began sounding throughout his flagship. All ships implement immediate reactor containment. But it was too late. The pulse cascade wasn't designed to destroy. Through brute force, it was designed to force the enemy's own technology to work against itself. Across the Zarthan fleet, secondary reactors overloaded in chain reactions that no defensive system had been designed to prevent. The first capital ship to explode was the Conquest's Edge, a massive dreadnought that had participated in 47 successful invasions. Its secondary reactor overwhelmed by harmonic resonance, it couldn't compensate for breached containment and detonated with the force of a small star. The explosion sent shockwaves through nearby vessels, forcing the entire second battle group into emergency dispersion patterns. How many ships have we lost? Varlon demanded, his voice tight with disbelief. 41 confirmed destroyed, Sir Grisnar reported. Another 137 reporting critical damage to propulsion and weapon systems. The cascade effect is still propagating through our formation. On the main screen, Jefferson watched the chaos with grim efficiency. Commander, this is what humans call defensive warfare. We're not trying to conquer your territory or destroy your empire. We're simply demonstrating that conquest of Earth carries costs you haven't calculated. Admiral Raxter's rage overwhelmed his military discipline. You dare threaten the Zarthan Empire. We have weapons that can crack planets. And we have technologies that can turn those weapons against you, Jefferson replied calmly. The question, Admiral, is whether you want to escalate this demonstration to include your planetary bombardment platforms. I can promise you the results would be educational. For the first time in his career, Commander Varlin found himself facing an enemy that combined technological superiority with strategic restraint, a combination that was somehow more terrifying than any conventional weapons system. The humans were winning not by destroying his fleet, but by making his fleet destroy itself. Sir Mavar reported her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. The energy patterns they're generating suggest future tech integration on a massive scale. This isn't just advanced technology, it's technology that shouldn't be possible for any single-planet civilization. Varlon stared at the tactical display, watching his supposedly invincible fleet struggle to contain the damage from weapons that hadn't technically fired a shot. For the first time in 3 centuries, he was beginning to understand what defeat felt like. Across the galaxy on 100 worlds bearing scars of Zarthan conquest, something unprecedented was happening. The impossible sight of Earth's defense grid dismantling the Empire's most elite fleet was being broadcast through quantum communication networks the Zarthans didn't even know existed. Commander Varlon stared at his tactical display as casualty reports continued pouring in. 214 ships disabled or destroyed, and the humans hadn't fired what any conventional military doctrine would recognize as a weapon. Their entire approach seemed designed to make his forces defeat themselves. "Sir," Communications Officer Tazak announced, his voice strained with confusion. "We're receiving transmissions from everywhere. Dozens of star systems, hundreds of frequency bands, all attempting to contact Earth directly." "Show me," Varlon commanded, though he dreaded what he might see. The communication array lit up with signals originating from across the local galactic arm. Each transmission carried the desperate hope of civilizations that had spent decades, sometimes centuries, under Zarthan rule. For them, Earth's resistance represented something they'd thought impossible proof that the Empire could be defeated. "People of Earth," came one transmission in translated Andromedan script, "the Helix colonies offer our engineering knowledge for your defense. We have waited 70 years for someone to stand against the Zarthans." Another signal from the Vega Protectorate. "Our crystalline technology could enhance your electromagnetic warfare capabilities. We pledge our resources to your resistance." One by one, the communications poured in offers of alliance, shared technology, military support. The broadcast of Earth's defensive success was inspiring something the Zarthan Empire had worked for millennia to prevent coordinated resistance across multiple star systems. General Jefferson watched these transmissions from her command center with careful attention. This was the moment the conquered observers had warned her about, when Earth's success would ripple outward, potentially destabilizing the Empire's control over dozens of worlds. "Lieutenant Drake," she instructed, "open a channel to the Zarthan flagship. It's time for Commander Varlon to understand the larger implications of his invasion." When Jefferson's image appeared on Varlon's screen again, her expression carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Commander, you're witnessing something your empire has tried to prevent for 3,000 years. When an oppressed people see that resistance is possible, they remember what freedom feels like." Varlon's secondary eyes tracked to his communication displays, showing the incoming alliance offers from across the galaxy. "You're inciting rebellion across sovereign imperial territories." "We're doing nothing except defending our world," Jefferson replied. "The fact that our defense inspires others isn't our responsibility, it's yours. How many of those worlds did your empire conquer? How many civilizations have been waiting for proof that you're not invincible?" The strategic implications were staggering. If even a fraction of the Empire's subject worlds began coordinated resistance, it would require military resources on a scale that could bankrupt their expansion efforts. Worse, it would demonstrate to other galactic powers that the Zarthan Empire could be challenged. Sir Science Officer Mavar interjected, "I'm detecting a new vessel approaching from the outer system. Configuration unknown, but it's massive, larger than our entire battle group combined. On the main screen, a ship unlike anything in Imperial databases materialized from what appeared to be folded space. Its design was elegant rather than aggressive, its hull composed of materials that seemed to shift between states of matter as they watched." "Unknown vessel." Admiral Raxter broadcasted, "You are entering a Zarthan Imperial Operations Zone. Identify yourself immediately." The response came in a voice that seemed to contain harmonics no single species could produce. "Commander Varlin Admiral Raxter General Jefferson, I am Observer Thomas Lumen of the Galactic Concord. I believe we need to discuss the current situation." Varlin's mandibles clicked in nervous confusion. The Galactic Concord was a myth, a legend told to young soldiers about ancient civilizations that supposedly governed the galaxy from the shadows. Most military historians considered it elaborate propaganda designed to discourage aggressive expansion. The Concord. Jefferson's voice carried a note of respect that seemed genuine. "Observer Lumen, you're earlier than we expected." "The situation has developed more rapidly than our projections indicated," Lumen replied. "Commander Varlon, your empire is currently violating approximately 47 articles of the Galactic Non-Interference Treaty. More significantly, you're threatening a world under active Concord protection." The revelation hit Varlin like a physical blow. If the Concord was real, if Earth was under their protection, then his invasion wasn't just military failure. It was a diplomatic catastrophe that could trigger consequences spanning multiple galactic arms. Protected world status was never communicated to Imperial Command. Admiral Raxter protested. "Because your empire has consistently demonstrated that knowledge of protection leads to attempts at circumvention," Observer Lumen explained. "Earth's protection status was classified to prevent exactly the kind of force escalation we're witnessing." General Jefferson spoke carefully. "Observer Lumen, our defensive response has been calibrated to demonstrate capability without causing unnecessary casualties. We've followed Concord protocols throughout this engagement." "Indeed. Your restraint has been noted and appreciated. However, the broader implications of this conflict require immediate attention." Varlin found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "What broader implications?" Observer Lumen's response would reshape the Zarthan Empire's understanding of its place in the galaxy. "Commander, your fleet's presence here has triggered the most significant realignment of galactic politics in over 1,000 years. Every civilization watching this engagement now knows that the Empire can be challenged. The question is whether you withdraw peacefully or force us to demonstrate why the Concord has maintained galactic stability for so long." As if to emphasize the point, Mavar's sensors detected 17 more massive vessels materializing throughout the system ships that defied categorization, wielding technologies that made even Zarthan science seem primitive. "Sir," she reported, her voice filled with scientific awe, "the energy signatures from those vessels are off our measurement scales. Whatever the Concord represents, they possess capabilities that make our entire fleet look like children's toys." The alliance of eyes that had begun with oppressed worlds offering support to Earth had suddenly expanded to include powers that could reshape the galaxy itself. The revelation of the Galactic Concord's existence transformed what had been a routine conquest into the most significant military crisis in Zarthan history. But Admiral Raxter, his scarred carapace bearing witness to centuries of undefeated warfare, was not ready to accept defeat even from mythical beings wielding impossible technologies. Observer Lumen. Raxter's voice carried absolute conviction. Protected world status or not, the Zarthan Empire does not retreat from inferior species. If your Concord wishes to intervene, you'll face the full might of our remaining forces." Commander Varlin watched his second-in-command with growing horror. Throughout their partnership, he'd relied on Raxter's aggressive instincts to overwhelm enemy resistance. But those same instincts faced with an enemy that defied conventional understanding were leading them toward catastrophe. Admiral Varlin warned, "Perhaps we should consider no." Raxter's roar echoed through the bridge. "We have 99,000 vessels remaining. I don't care if they're protected by ancient aliens or dimensional gods, we will complete this conquest." General Jefferson, monitoring the exchange from Earth's command center, felt a chill of apprehension. The Concorde's intervention was supposed to provide a diplomatic solution, but Raxter's response suggested that some lessons could only be learned through demonstration. "Lieutenant Drake," she instructed quietly, "bring the solar veil online. If they force escalation, we need to be ready." Drake's fingers moved across his control interface with practiced precision. "Solar veil charging, General. Full deployment will require approximately 12 minutes. All orbital collectors are redirecting solar radiation into the quantum focusing arrays." Observer Luhman's voice carried a note of regret when he responded to Raxter's defiance. "Admiral, your empire has consistently chosen force over diplomacy. Very well, but understand that what follows is entirely preventable." On Varlon's tactical display, the remaining Zarthan fleet began moving into attack formation. 99,800 ships arranging themselves for the largest military engagement in Imperial history. Their weapons, capable of sterilizing entire continents, powered up in unison. Their shields, designed to withstand stellar-level energy outputs, reached maximum strength. "All ships report ready for final assault," Tactical Officer Gersnar announced. "Admiral Raxter awaiting your command." But as the fleet prepared for battle, Jefferson activated humanity's most sophisticated defensive system, a network of future tech so advanced that it turned an entire star into a weapon. "Solar veil deployment initiated," Drake reported. "Quantum collectors achieving synchronization with solar magnetic field fluctuations. We're essentially turning the sun into our ally." What the Zarthan fleet faced wasn't traditional weapons or energy shields. Instead, Earth's defense network manipulated solar radiation itself, creating interference patterns in space that rendered their targeting systems completely useless. Every guided weapon, every energy beam, every tactical sensor was suddenly operating blind, overwhelmed by precisely modulated stellar radiation that Earth's quantum computers could control with surgical precision. "Sir," Mivar's voice cracked with disbelief. "All weapon systems are reporting targeting failures. The interference patterns are too complex for our computers to compensate. It's as if they've turned space itself against us." Within minutes, the most powerful military force in Zarthan history found itself completely paralyzed. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply unable to function as a solar veil created a cocoon of controlled chaos around Earth that neutralized every advantage their technology provided. "How?" Varlin whispered, staring at readouts that showed his weapon systems functioning perfectly yet utterly incapable of acquiring targets. Jefferson's transmission provided the answer with clinical precision. "Commander, the solar veil represents the culmination of 70 years of preparation. We're not using future tech to fight you, we're using it to make fighting impossible. Your weapons can't target what they can't see, and they can't see through controlled stellar radiation patterns." Admiral Raxter, his worldview crumbling around him, made one final desperate attempt to salvage Imperial pride. "All ships prepare for ramming speed. If we can't shoot them, we'll crash into their planet." But even that last resort was anticipated. As the Zarthan fleet attempted to coordinate a massive kamikaze attack, they discovered that the solar veil didn't just blind their weapons, it confused their navigation systems as well. Ships that tried to maintain formation found themselves scattered across impossible distances, their pilots unable to determine which direction led to Earth. Sir Grosvenor reported with the hollow voice of absolute defeat. The fleet is completely dispersed. Ships are reporting navigation failures, communication blackouts, and total system confusion. We can't even find each other, let alone coordinate an attack. Observer Lumen's voice carried no triumph, only sadness for the necessity of the demonstration. Admiral Raxter, you have witnessed the difference between technological power and technological wisdom. Earth's defenses don't destroy, they prevent destruction itself. For 15 agonizing minutes, 99,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships drifted helplessly through space, their crews struggling to understand how they'd been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by a species they'd considered primitive. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the solar veil deactivated. The interference patterns faded, targeting systems came back online, and the scattered Zarthan fleet found themselves once again capable of fighting. But the lesson had been delivered with devastating clarity. Earth hadn't needed to destroy them to defeat them. They'd simply demonstrated that human survival skills had evolved far beyond anything the Empire had imagined possible. Commander Varlin. Jefferson's voice carried both respect and warning. You now understand what you're truly facing. This is your final opportunity to withdraw with honor intact. The moment when legends are born is rarely recognized as it happens. More often, it's only in retrospect that we understand we've witnessed history pivot on decisions of individuals who never intended to change the galaxy. For Commander Nathan Varlin, that recognition came as he stared at his defeated fleet and realized his name would be remembered not for conquest, but for the day the Zarthan Empire learned the meaning of humility. Admiral Raxter, Varlin said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of military tradition. Stand down all weapon systems. Order the fleet to assume defensive positions only. Raxter's scarred features contorted with rage. We don't retreat. The Empire has never faced an enemy like this. Varlin interrupted his authority, cutting through his subordinates' protests. They've demonstrated they can defeat us without destroying us. Do you understand what that means? The implications were staggering. Every military doctrine the Zarthan Empire had developed was based on the assumption that ultimate victory required the enemy's destruction. But Earth had proven that true victory could be achieved through restraint by demonstrating such overwhelming capability that further resistance became pointless. Observer Thomas Lumen's vessel moved closer to the Zarthan flagship, its impossible technology maintaining perfect formation despite the absence of any visible propulsion system. Commander Varlin, you've shown wisdom in recognizing the futility of continued aggression. The Concord appreciates leaders who can adapt their thinking when presented with new realities. General Jefferson's transmission carried a respect that seemed genuine despite their opposing positions. Commander, your fleet performed exactly as expected with courage, skill, and dedication to duty. The failure wasn't in your execution, but in your Empire's understanding of what Earth represents. Varlin found himself asking the question that had haunted him since the engagement began. What do we represent? Why did the Concord allow this confrontation to occur instead of simply warning us away? Lumen's response would echo through galactic politics for generations to come. Because, Commander, some lessons can only be learned through experience. Your empire has spent 3 millennia expanding through conquest, believing that technological superiority guaranteed victory. Today, you've learned that intelligence preparation and restraint can defeat even overwhelming force. On the main screen, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unmarked by the battle that had raged in its vicinity. The planet's defense network had returned to standby status, its incredible capabilities hidden once again behind the facade of a simple, pre-interstellar civilization. Science Officer Mivar reported, her voice filled with scientific wonder. Long-range sensors are detecting similar energy signatures from other star systems. The technologies Earth demonstrated, they're not unique. The revelation struck Varlan like a physical blow. Earth wasn't an anomaly, it was an example. Throughout the galaxy, other worlds under conquered protection were likely developing similar capabilities, preparing for the day when the Zarthan Empire's expansion would reach their borders. "How many worlds?" he asked quietly. Observer Lumen's answer reshaped Varlan's understanding of galactic politics. 47 worlds currently enjoy active Concord protection, Commander. Others are developing under our guidance, but haven't yet achieved the defensive capabilities Earth has demonstrated. Your Empire's expansion has been directed away from these systems through careful manipulation of your intelligence gathering and target selection processes. The scope of the manipulation was breathtaking. For centuries, the Zarthan Empire had believed they were choosing their conquest targets based on strategic analysis and military opportunity. In reality, they'd been unconsciously guided away from worlds the Concord considered worth protecting. Admiral Varlan addressed Raxter with finality. "Order all ships to begin immediate withdrawal from this system. We're returning to Imperial space." Raxter's military discipline finally overcame his wounded pride. "Yes, sir. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump to Rally Point 7. But as the remnants of the once mighty invasion fleet prepared to depart, Observer Lumen made an offer that would change everything. Commander Varlan, the Galactic Concord, extends an invitation for you to serve as liaison between your Empire and the protected worlds. Your experience today has given you unique insights that could prevent future conflicts." Varlan felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. Accepting would mean abandoning his Imperial commission, turning his back on 3 centuries of military service. But remaining with the Empire meant complicity in a system he now understood was built on ignorance and aggression. "What would such service entail?" he asked. "Helping your people understand that the galaxy is larger and more complex than they've realized, that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy but from the wisdom to build, that the species they've dismissed as primitive may possess forms of intelligence they've never considered." General Jefferson's final words carried the weight of prophecy. Commander Humanity's survival skills evolved through cooperation, innovation, and the ability to adapt. Your Empire's survival may depend on learning those same lessons. 6 months later, in the Hall of Galactic Memory on the Concord homeworld, a new monument was unveiled. It depicted a human figure nameless, representing all of Earth standing before a vast star field. The inscription, written in the languages of 100 worlds, read simply, "The weakest, the most dangerous." Commander Nathan Varlan, now serving as senior liaison to the Concord Council, attended the dedication ceremony. As he watched representatives from dozens of species gather to honor Earth's achievement, he reflected on the day that had changed everything. The Zarthan Empire had sent 99,900 ships to break Earth. Instead, Earth had broken the Empire's understanding of power itself. And from that breaking, something new was being born, a galaxy where strength was measured not in destructive capability, but in the wisdom to avoid destruction altogether. These are the stories that echo through time, reminding us that the universe's greatest victories are often won not through conquest, but through the courage to redefine what victory means. They become known as HFY stories. Humanity fuck. Yeah, stories, celebrations of the moment when underestimated potential reveals itself as unstoppable force. The universe is vast, filled with wonders and terrors beyond imagination. But sometimes the most incredible discoveries aren't about what's out there, they're about what's within us. If these tales of cosmic redemption and unexpected heroism inspire you, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys to the edges of possibility. Share your thoughts in the comments about what humanity's greatest strength really is. Until next time, keep looking up. The stars are calling, and they have so much more to show us.